weeks ago, Cleveland rocked as kart FedEx Championship leader Cristiano Damata went for his record 5th victory in a row. But the Brazilian's drive for 5 would end in a cloud of purple haze. The win went instead to Patrick Carpentier, who held off fellow Canadian Paul Tracy and sent a jolt of excitement through their home fans in anticipation of this weekend's race on Canadian soil in Vancouver. Speaking of jolts, championship runner-up Bruno Junqueira got one on Friday when his front suspension failed. His red flag sealed provisional pole for Tracy, another reason to wave the maple leaf. But on Saturday, Damata jumped 15 spots on the grid to his 5th pole position of the season. We're about to see if Damata is once again the man. Welcome to Concord Pacific Place in round 10 of the kart FedEx Championship Series for 2002, the Kart Grand Prix of Vancouver. Hello everyone, I'm Bob Varsha along with Tommy Kendall. Here's how the championship stands at the midway point of the season. Cristiano Damata picked up a bonus point for pole. He is now 51 markers ahead of second place Bruno Junqueira. Dario Franchitti is third, then a tie for 4th between Patrick Carpentier and the winner in Cleveland Michel Jourdain Jr. Carpentier being the winner in Cleveland 2 weeks ago. 10 drivers are within 1 race worth of points of each other behind Cristiano Damata. So the points could take a beating today in front of a big crowd here in Vancouver. Let's get right to the pit lane and Derek Daly.
And Bob, it is an enormous crowd, and there was 96,000 people here just on Friday and Saturday. Their one wish, that a Canadian might win this. Toughest opposition, obviously from the superstar Cristiano Damata, driving for Paul Newman's team. See Paul right here. Now, from Cleveland, the DNF, the mechanical failure, shows you, and the mechanical problems they had on Friday, that this team, despite its success, is not infallible. Calvin?
Double D, when Cristiano Damata had that blip on the radar screen in Cleveland, Team Green took advantage. 2 of their drivers finishing on the podium. Michael second, Paul Tracy third, and Dario led that one until his engine went up in smoke. A rare failure for Honda, but they returned to Vancouver stronger than ever. A week off has given them time to evaluate the Lola setup. All 3 drivers start in the top 5 today. Let's go down to Scott Pruitt.
The guys that these guys couldn't beat last week was Patrick Carpentier. Frustrating weekend. He starts 16th. A winner off of Cleveland, starting 16th today. The other story, defending champions from last year here, Patrick Racing, they changed drivers. Townsend Bell out, Oreo Cervela in. The last part of this is the fact, Michel Jourdain, great run on Friday for Team Rahal. Qualifying 6th. Unfortunately, big problems yesterday. Could not get the fuel pickup to work quite rightly. Unfortunately, starts last. This guy will be in. My gamble, lap 4.
All right, thanks very much, guys. As the field continues to circulate on the parade laps, here's a look at the starting grid. On the pole for the 5th straight time on a road course, Cristiano Damata, he'll start next to Paul Tracy. As you see, Michel Jourdain Jr. has spun on the warm-up laps. Now, Damata and Tracy have a history. 3 weeks ago at the other Canadian round this season, in Toronto, Paul Tracy took a flyer at the start, tried to jump pole-sitter Damata. It was not allowed. Second time around, properly chastised. Tracy dropped back. Damata jumped to the fore, and as Alex Zanardi waved the flag, Damata disappeared over the horizon. Starting on row 2 will be Dario Franchitti, the 1998 winner here at Vancouver, and Scott Dixon alongside his best qualifying performance, equaling his best qualifying performance of the year. Row 3, Michael Andretti, who was about to take over ownership of Team Green, starting next to Tony Kanaan of Brazil. On row 4 will be Christian Fittipaldi and Alex Tagliani, the pole sitter here a week ago. On row 5, Jimmy Vasser, who had electrical problems in the warm-up and got no time whatsoever, starting next to Kenny Brack, who was 3rd quickest in the warm-up. Now, Jimmy Vasser has had a lot of problems thus far this year, especially in the early laps of the race. In the season opener in Monterrey, Mexico, he was involved in an accident with Paul Tracy, Kenny Brack, and Townsend Bell. Then at Chicago Motor Speedway, it was Vasser and Brack who tried to go around the outside 4 and 5 wide. It didn't work. Both Brack and Vasser hard into the wall. That's what it looked like from Jimmy Vassar's onboard camera. And then 2 weeks ago at Burke Lakefront Airport in Cleveland, Jimmy Vassar wound up as the locomotive at the front of a 4-car accordion. Tora Takagi, Mario Dominguez, and Townsend Bell all involved. On row 6 will be Adrian Fernandez and Bruno Junqueira. The worst qualifying performance of the year for the man who is on average the best in the field. Row 7, all Japanese drivers, Shinji Nakano and Tora Takagi. On row 8, Oriol Servia, as Scott mentioned, the Spaniard back in, replacing Rookie of the Year leader Townsend Bell at Patrick Racing. He'll start next to Patrick Carpentier, one of the 3 Canadians in the race. And on row 9, Mario Dominguez and Michel Jourdain Jr. There you see Jourdain, who spun and tagged the wall. Here's a look at our race analysis. This is the longest race ever run here in Vancouver at 178 miles. Our pit window, 32 laps. That is a mandatory maximum pit run, 32 laps before you must stop, making this 100-lap race a 3-stop race. And the pit speed limit, as always, is 50 miles an hour. To Scott Pruitt.
Well, Michel Jourdain just came in and came out. They took the old front wing off, a lot of damage, but they did not put another front wing on. What they want to do is get back out in front of the pace car, which they have, come back around and try and get in and out without losing a lap. Bob?
Michel Jourdain Jr. spun on a very quick part of the racetrack. There you see the damaged nose cone. Now the clock, and is the laps, will count. The race was to have started by this point, so this lap goes into the books as lap 1 of the race, though we do not yet have a green flag, and Jourdain makes his way around.
And the reason he's running without the nose cone is they want to keep him on the lead lap because the race officially started, so they got as much work as they could do. Someone was monitoring where the field was. They let him go, wave him around. He'll come in again, do work, and they'll do this over and over if they need to keep on the lead lap.
There you see the Simple Green Kart safety crew, Lon Bromley telling the field, or telling Jourdain to slow down. They have some cleanup to do. There's water on the track. That's a different part of the racetrack. Excuse me, that water leak is underneath one of the overhead bridges. So they'll have to get that dammed up somehow to keep that fluid off the track. Now, as I mentioned, 32-lap maximum pit window. So you may be wondering how the teams decide when they're going to pit. Well, in addition to the tactical situation, they may choose to short pit. That is, pit early and out of sequence. How do you decide how to do that? Well, rather than going forward in 32-lap increments from the beginning of the race, you count backward from the end.
And for this to work, you need to be able to run quicker than everybody else once you're off by yourself, or it won't do any good. Scott Pruitt talked about it. The guys at the back really have nothing to lose, but if they go in and out, they're in danger of running a lap down. Again, it only works if you're quick.
So as you see there, we may see cars pitting as early as lap 4 of this race. But if you do that, given the slow run to your pit, your stationary time, and your exit, you're probably going to come out right about the time the leaders come around.
Now, I'll give you a caveat. If this yellow persists because of that water leak, when we get to lap 4, every single car will pit, and it removes any option for someone to get out of sequence. And so everybody from that point on will be on the exact same strategy. So let's hope for a little excitement purposes that we get it green before lap 4.
That water was leaking onto the track from the support pit area, completely separate pit and paddock area for the support races as opposed to the headlining champ cars. As we run through our onboard cameras, there's our visor cam. You're riding alongside the left eye of Paul Tracy, who always seems to run with his visor cracked just that little bit. Now you are on board with the pole sitter, Cristiano Damada, and that told you everything you needed to know about grip.
And that's exactly how Michel Jourdain got backwards. So when the tires are cold, there's just not a whole lot of grip, and so you might have been scrubbing his tires a little bit, fed it some power. Here's the track map. Turn 1 and 2 technically are 2 turns, but it drives like 1. It's a decreasing radius essentially. The second part being the part where you're trying to get to. Not much of a straightaway out there, so you just get through 1, 2, and 3 onto the back straightaway and in through the flat 5th gear kink. At the end of the straightaway, turn 6, hard braking. It's off camber, slanting to the left, hard to keep the right front from locking up. Also bumpy and not quite straight. The other area is the 11-12 complex, and it doesn't show how tight that is, but you'll see guys straight lining. They'll bomb the curb on the left, slam the curb on the right. That's why the guys have reinforced the suspension. The thing about that is there is no runoff area, so the guys straight line it. The left side tires try to lock, the right side tire to lock, and then you try to get the car turned before that wall comes up.
Lights are out on the safety car. Let's listen in now. The voice of race control, Irene Chambers, talks the field around to Chief Starter Jim Swintal.
by 2. I want to see them 2 by 2. Line starter. Want to see them 2 by 2. Pace car pit. In 11, want to see you 2 by 2. 2 by 2. Flag, we are green.
Tony Kanaan looking down the inside of Scott Dixon. Oh, Michael Andretti gets tagged into a spin.
Got bumped by Christian Fittipaldi, and poor Jimmy Vasser one more time.
Is that Vasser and Brack? I believe it is.
Now Jimmy's got it nosed up against the wall.
There goes Michael. No apparent. He stalled it. He'll need a push. He'll lose all kinds of time. Brack appeared to have damaged the rear wing. His race may be over.
The worst news for Jimmy is that he's not really in the way of the racetrack. He's blocking the pit exit, but they might, okay, they do go full course yellow. Well, now he needs to try to get restarted before Cristiano gets back to turn 1.
There is Brack climbing out. Jimmy looking for a pushback. Let's take another look.
Now when Cristiano slams down the inside, he can't quite get it stopped and banks off of Michael. Jimmy loses the back end and actually collects Brack. Brack tries to go around the outside and gets pinched against the tires.
From overhead in turn 1. There goes Michael off to the right. Jimmy spins in the yellow and white shell car, and looks like Kenny Brack had nowhere to go. Watch the upper right corner of your screen for Brack.
There's Christian, and he is going to try to come down the inside of Michael. Spins Michael the reverse way. Jimmy loses it. Just tags Kenny on the way by.
So that may mean right rear damage for Vasser. Derek Daly.
Kenny, just wasn't your day. Got caught with Vasser's accident?
Yeah, I was trying to go around him, but he slid back. There was no room, and I caught him with my rear wheel, so I couldn't. There was no way.
Sorry, Kenny. Man, Kenny and Vasser on these first lap accidents. It's hard to believe it. This season rolls on.
There's Bobby Rahal, Jimmy Vasser's car owner. So Michel Jourdain Jr. spun before we got the green flag. Now Vasser has his problems. Get down to the pit lane and Scott Pruitt.
I'm down here in Jimmy's pit. Needless to say, very, very frustrating. Jimmy called in, thinks maybe they have some sort of problem in the rear. He's frustrated, very anxious to get back on track, get things going again, but they aren't sure. They think there may be more damage than what we think. Guys?
It certainly looked like Jimmy and Kenny got together and hooked wheels hard. So it'd be no surprise if there was damage to Jimmy's right rear.
You can see it. Way too much positive camber on the right rear, so he's more than likely out.
Lights remain on the safety car, so we've got at least another lap of yellow going here.
The pit window opens now. It is lap 4. I expect every single car to be in the pit.
Making the first of an expected 3 stops.
Well,
Nope,
pits must be closed.
Pass by the pit in. Now cars heading for the pit.
Huh, I don't get that at all.
This is Alex Tagliani.
This is a good move for Tag. He can go the rest of the way on 2 stops. All those other guys, if they stop next time around, they'll be behind Tag. If they don't, they're going to have to make a splash and go at the very end.
Michael Andretti is pitting, and Calvin Fish is there.
Andretti's crew goes to work the Motorola boys. They're going to be changing the front nose, and the good thing is that they're going to now hit their pit window of lap 4, meaning he can make this on just 2 more stops after this pit stop. They're changing tires, putting fuel in. That's all part of the deal to increase your sequence here and increase that pit window. Let's go down to Scott Pruitt.
Just a little further down from Jimmy's pit, Michel Jourdain, teammate to Jimmy. They were in and out. And also behind him, Oriol Serbia, Patrick Racing. Remember, they won this race last year, in and out. No problems, 4 tires, and filled it up with fuel.
I wonder if those cars who stayed out are expecting another lap of yellow. Recall at Motegi, Japan earlier this year, Dario Franchitti was caught out in the pits when they went green before his team was expecting it. He went a lap down, and that was his race.
Yeah, a little bit different situation. Yeah, I guess if they had been expecting green, but this is a pivotal swing. Whichever car is in front of all these cars that stopped is in a really good position come the end of the race.
And that should be Alex Tagliani. We'll take a quick break and return with more live from round 10 of the Kart FedEx Championship Series, the Kart Grand Prix of Vancouver. A big crowd on hand. Stay with us. Mario Andretti pondering perhaps some of the same questions we are. We'll be right back. Out to go green once again here in Vancouver.
Flag. We are green.
Bob Barsha, Tommy Kendall, Derek Daly, Calvin Fish, and Scott Pruitt with you. Kenny Brack and Jimmy Vasser are out of the race. For both men, it is the 5th time in 10 races that they will finish out of the championship points. Cristiano D'Amata leads Paul Tracy, Dario Franchitti, Scott Dixon, Tony Kanaan, Christian Fittipaldi, Adrian Fernandez, Bruno Junqueira, Shinji Nakano, and Toru Takagi. Those are the top 10. Look at him slewing sideways onto the high-speed backstretch. Heavy braking here for turn 6. This is the support pit area where that water leaked onto the track before the green flag.
Saw a little blocking at the end of the back straightaway between the two Japanese drivers. Nakano trying to fend off a little possible move by Takagi.
Pounding those right side rumble strips as they make their way through that quick chicane onto the start-finish straightaway. The sun beginning to peek through here in Vancouver. That will raise the track temperatures as we go on board with Patrick Carpentier, the winner 2 weeks ago in Cleveland. This is turn 3. Turn 4. Pacific Boulevard North, becoming Quebec Street.
Minus 10.5.
Into a parking lot. Turn 7 and 8. This is 9. And turn 10 outside the Science World Dome. Big curb on the right.
It's big, but it's not real severe, so the guys can get up on there without too big of a penalty.
That was the chicane onto the start-finish straightaway. Headed for BC Place.
Have a look at the board, Pat.
Good luck having a look at the board. As Bruno Junqueira with Shinji Nakano just behind him. 8th and 9th. Adrian Fernandez just ahead of that battle in 7th. Coming up to the area where Junqueira crashed on Friday.
And then he had another failure in qualifying. It didn't have any terrible consequence, but had a failure.
Alex Tagliani had a notion. On board with Tagliani.
And for these guys that are out of sequence, it's important that they run as quick as they can, because Cristiano and those guys can make up that one-stop deficit if they get enough of a gap, and then you get a yellow or doing it under green. So the guys that are back here amongst them, they're battling amongst themselves. And if Tags is quicker than the car in front of him, he needs to get by, or the edge they gained on that pit stop starts to slip away.
Tagliani sat on pole for this race a year ago, dominated more than 60 laps of the race before he stopped with a mechanical failure. Still looking for his first win in the Kart FedEx Championship Series. Meanwhile, Michel Jourdain Jr.'s day has gone from bad to worse. He's already made a couple of pit stops, a total of 4 actually. And he's about to come in for a drive-through penalty for running over a hose on his very first one. More from Scott Pruitt in the pit lane.
The Rahal team is telling Michel.
Scott Dixon has spun. Excuse me. This is down in turn 6. The support pit area, and he is losing all kinds of positions. Dixon was 4th when he went around. It looks like the right front is deranged. He must have hit something. What a tough break for the New Zealander.
Be interested to see if that was a similar failure that the Newman Haas guys reinforced. That looks pretty similar. No scuffing on the sidewall.
Calvin Fish.
Well, we reported earlier that Newman Haas had reinforced their upper A-arms, and that looks to me like what happened to Scott Dixon once again. Bruno Junqueira had it happen on Friday with big consequences. He had another one yesterday in a session, and it looked to me like Scott Dixon's just did the same thing. So this is a major concern. The majority of this field is running Lola chassis with similar A-arm setups.
And the reason for that failure, again, I tried to get information from both Lola and Target Chip Ganassi, and they were very tight-lipped about it. So basically the pounding of the curb at turn 11 and 11A, the guys just straight line that. And to say that they should stay off there, as a race car driver, if it's quicker, you've got to do it. So, but this puts every Lola runner except Newman Haas in a real bind.
The pits are open under this third full course caution. That is 2 full course cautions plus the yellow flag on lap 1 before we took the green for Jourdain's spin. We'll be back for pit stops in a moment. Welcome back to the streets of Vancouver, British Columbia. That's the view from our Honda Skycam high above Concord Pacific Place. Thanks to Honda for providing these great views on an overcast day here on Falls Creek in downtown Vancouver. I'm Bob Barsha with Tommy Kendall, Derek Daly, Calvin Fish, and Scott Pruitt. We are under yellow. Moments ago, Scott Dixon suffered an apparent right front suspension failure. See if we can watch it happen right there.
As soon as he hits the brakes, those wheels are trying to be forced back every time these cars hit the brake with tremendous load. And it failed at that point, folded the wheel back, did a really nice job of keeping it off the wall. I'm sure the first thing that when that happens, the first thing you look at is where am I going to hit? And so he was able to keep it off the wall. But every single Lola runner, like I said, without those reinforced A-arms, has got to be thinking about that.
Tough day thus far for the Target Chip Ganassi racing team. They lost Scott Dixon right there, and at the first turn under green, they lost Kenny Brink down at turn 1. Let's go back to that incident now.
But the chain reaction started with Christian trying to get down the inside of Michael. They come together kind of lightly. Michael spins around. Jimmy trying to get stopped, and onboard Kenny's trying to go around the outside. Jimmy rolls back a little bit, tags his right rear, and short day.
There's a look from inside turn 1 at Michael's spin. Very, very slick down there offline.
The way this is playing out, that might be the best thing that ever happened to Michael, because it committed them to this early stop, and they've been extending their window every time into the pits. And so they have only 2 more stops to make, and they can go longer than anyone else.
We expect the green. Let's go to Calvin Fish.
Try and get a quick update here. Brian Lyles, general manager with Newman Haas. What did you see in the warm-up, Brian, that gave you concern to reinforce the front wishbones for the race?
We just saw a very tiny amount of deformation in one left front wishbone, and then we'd heard that Ganassi had some trouble also with a similar configuration.
So just a safety precaution here for Newman Haas. They feel pretty confident with the cars, guys.
All right, thanks very much, Calvin. There is the Newman Haas driver, Cristiano D'Amata. 5 poles to his credit, 5 victories to go with them. The decals are on the side of his cockpit surround like a fighter pilot's. He is the dominant driver in the series right now. Now we want to introduce a new feature to our broadcast this weekend. Turn up the volume and enjoy the sounds of speed here in Vancouver. On board with Patrick Carpentier, you notice how much shifting the drivers have to do and how much steering they have to do with their left hand only.
That's what caught Cristiano out at Toronto in qualifying. Had one hand on the shifter and he hit some bumps. The car got away from him and couldn't keep it together with just one hand.
The suspension pieces are going to be a continuing story all day. Let's get an update on Scott Dixon with Scott Pruitt.
I just got done talking to his team. They wanted to get the car back here because they wanted to get it repaired and go out and get some more laps. Unfortunately, CART said, no way, we're going to park it in a safe location, and they're done for the day. Calvin?
Christian Fittipaldi was questioning his team as to why they didn't bring him in under that last yellow. They said we cannot because of what the players team did. With the players team being Patrick Carpentier and Tagliani in it early, we would lose too much ground to that team. We have to stick with the original game plan and probably still pit on lap 32.
All right, thanks, guys. Working lap 17 of 100, as you see. Bridgestone running order across the top of the screen. Of course, all the cars are on Bridgestone Potenza racing radials. Cristiano D'Amata has led on every road or street circuit this year as we go on board with Patrick Carpentier. Sequential gearbox. Push the gear ahead to go up a gear, pull it to go, or excuse me, ahead to go down a gear, pull it to go up a gear. Welcome to the CART FedEx Championship Series Round 10, the Grand Prix of Vancouver here on Speed Channel live. Bob Varsha and Tommy Kendall in the booth. Derek Daly, Calvin Fish, and Scott Pruitt are in the pit lane. Here's a look at our leaderboard. Working lap 17. Cristiano D'Amata started from pole. Paul Tracy alongside. 6th through 10th. Good run for Adrian Fernandez, who's had a very difficult run of races recently. There you see cars out of the race. Scott Dixon, Jimmy Vasser, and Kenny Brack. Our Bridgestone race summary. The leader from the green flag has been Cristiano D'Amata. I told you about the 3 cars out of the race. No lead changes yet. We've had several yellow flags. Let's go to Scott Pruitt with Jimmy Vasser.
Talking about guys having a hard time. Jimmy, you guys can't buy a brake.
So you gotta make your own brakes too. I locked the rears going in on the start. I think, I mean, you guys can probably tell me more on TV. I got off the brakes to let it hook back up. I might have been rolling too fast. The rear end just stepped out on me. I'm not sure if the rear wheel's locked up again or what, but that's more my problem than anything. Spun on my own. But the rear's locked early on me. I don't know really what happened. You can probably see more on the replay.
Well, tough luck. We'll see you at Mid-Ohio. These guys are having tough luck with both their cars here this weekend, guys.
That's the only kind of luck those two have had this year. As I mentioned, 5 times in 10 races, neither Kenny Brack nor Jimmy Vasser, championship contenders both, have finished out of the points this year.
And you think that suspension isn't going through Bruno Junqueira's mind after his 2 failures yesterday?
Oh boy.
His teammate nursing the sore left wrist.
Look at Adrian Fernandez, the only owner driver in the series. That is until the ink dries on the contract from Michael Andretti in partnership with Kim Green, Kevin Savary, take over Team Green from its founder, Barry Green. That announcement came last Tuesday, so we'll have 2 owner drivers if, in fact, Michael is driving again in this championship next year. There are a lot of rumors going around about whether, in fact, Michael will be back with his new team. Cristiano D'Amata is our leader. We'll be back with more, approaching the 20-lap mark of 100 here in Vancouver. Welcome back live to Concord Pacific Place, a neighborhood in the middle of Vancouver, British Columbia. So welcome you back to the CART Grand Prix of Vancouver. Cristiano D'Amata is the leader on Pacific Boulevard North. Headed now towards the braking area, turn 6. Paul Tracy and Dario Franchitti, the Team Green teammates, run 2nd and 3rd. We're on board now with D'Amata.
Now, Cristiano is under pressure, not from Paul Tracy. He is actually racing against Mario Dominguez, Alex Tagliani, Carpentier, etc. Because when he stops, those guys will be running a series between 3 and 11 laps on hot tires, trying to make up gaps on Cristiano.
Let's get down to the best seats in the house. Derek Daly is there.
Yes, I am. And Jimmy Vasser talked about the poor luck he had. Well, everybody down here on the Molson Hospitality had a grandstand view of the first lap accident. Now, one of the beauties of street racing is, look, you can get within about 10 or 15 feet of the racing car. So when Vasser hit the wall and spun right here, he was only about 10 feet from everybody's strawberries and cheesecake.
I don't think he was in the mood for dessert, Derek, but you get the best jobs every weekend. Now, in the amount of time it took for Derek Daly to speak to us there, Cristiano D'Amato was halfway around the racetrack, lapping at about 62 seconds. It's about 102 miles an hour in average speed, and given these very, very slow corners, you can imagine how fast they have to go on the straightaways to average well over 100 miles per hour. It is D'Amato, Tracy, Franchitti, Cannon, Fittipaldi, Fernandez. Adrian Fernandez moving up to 6th now. Let's get more on Paul Tracy with Calvin Fish.
Well, I just checked in with the team, and they've really been working hard with the mixer setting in terms of whether they're running lean or rich and trying to save fuel. Initially, they told Paul to lean it out a little bit so they could save some fuel, and all that really does mean when he comes into the pit, they spend less time putting the fuel into the car, but they felt they were losing too much time. Cristiano immediately jumped to about a 0.4 of a second jump on him every lap. They told him to richen it back up. They couldn't afford to play too many games at this stage of the race, Tommy.
Yeah, it's really starting to unfold, and Tagliani is losing distance to Dominguez. So the guys to watch are Dominguez, who's the furthest up of the guys who stopped early, and then Takagi and Andretti, who are just at the tail end of that group, who can go a full 11 laps further. So you've got kind of 3 sets of guys you need to keep your eye on to see how it breaks out. And again, Cristiano has clear track, Dominguez has clear track, and so, but Michael and Takagi do not.
9 laps away from the end of that first 32-lap window. It's BC Place and now GM Place, the Twin Stadiums here in downtown Vancouver, loom over this 1.78-mile 12-turn racetrack. On to Pacific Boulevard North goes Paul Tracy. Now, as I mentioned, Adrian Fernandez right there having a heck of a run. He started back in 11th. He is up to 6th. He's had trouble seeing the top half of the speed charts all weekend, but he's looking really strong here. Scott Pruitt has more on him.
Thanks, Bob. I just got done talking to talking to the engineer here, and about both cars. Both cars running very good, 6th and 8th respectively. Adrian running 6th. I talked to the guys. They said, everything is going great. We're having to save a little bit of fuel. I said, what about pit stops? He said, we're planning to come in at lap 32. Everything else is going great. Now remember, he was actually last in qualifying on Friday. Guys?
That's right. He was stone last on Friday. His teammate Shinji Nakano has had much better success than his team owner. One of the key Honda teams. A good look at how quickly they go through that chicane. As you mentioned, Tommy, they basically just jink left and right. You may think about lifting a little. On board with Tony Kanaan.
Heading into turn 3. Turn 4 onto the back straightaway. Flatten 5th gear kink. And right there is where the suspensions are failing. So if that doesn't put it in perspective for you, these guys are brave, brave.
I wonder what's been going on over the radio waves between the teams and the drivers regarding those suspension parts.
About the only thing they can do is ask him to stay off the curbs. The reason the curbing, and you'll get it, watch when he comes in here, you'll hear it, see if he's on the left side and the right side. Bang. Looks like he was avoiding the second set of curbs, so Mo Nunn might have asked him to give them a wide berth. And the reason the curbs are so brutal is when you hit the brakes, those A-arms are trying to fold back. There's tremendous loads. When you hit the curb, it's loaded and then unloaded, and it's putting torque through, and then it unweights and it springs forward, it loads again, and so it's working them forward and back.
Different sort of problem, it would appear, for Mario Dominguez. What's up, Scott?
I just got done talking to crew guys here. Some problems. It really smells like smoke. They don't know what it is, but something did catch fire. Now these guys, remember, these guys were running 9th at the time, having one of their best weekends. Very tough break for the Herdez team. Very tough break, guys.
9th and the furthest forward of all the cars that had stopped earlier. If they were going to be able to run quick enough, they were probably poised, literally, to win this race.
And as the only rookie in the field, Dominguez would have made up all sorts of ground on Rookie of the Year leader Townsend Bell, who is not in today's race. We'll take a quick break. Be back with more from the Grand Prix of Vancouver. of Vancouver. In 2 weeks, it'll be the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course in Lexington, Ohio. We'll have first qualifying on Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time here on Speed. Kart Friday night airs at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. On Saturday, live final round of qualifying at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. The Grand Prix of Mid-Ohio will air on Sunday on CBS at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Cristiano Damada is the runaway leader in the championship and in the race, leading by 5 seconds right now. In our first Toyota Spotlight of the race, we'll take a closer look at the secret weapon of the Newman-Haas team. What is it? Well, let's just call it sweat equity.
This is very, very much one group of individuals trying to pull in the same direction to make sure both cars do well.
It's one team, two cars. You know, and I think a lot of the teams in the paddock aren't necessarily like that. You know, I hear of some teams that they have the engineers and the driver from one car in one truck and the engineers and the driver in the other car in the other truck. It doesn't work that way here. We have all the engineers and the drivers together.
I can't make as much progress on my car if I don't get feedback from Craig and from Christian, so we all work together.
You know, Rocky, the other race engineer, and I, we literally sit about 3 feet apart and we spend the whole day going, okay, what are you doing? What are you doing?
I like to think it's one team until we get on a racetrack. And then you want to beat, I don't care if they're next door at the Ganassi team or at Team Green. I mean, they're our teammates in the shop, and we travel with them, we live with them. We work in the same tent with them. And, you know, they're our brothers in the shop. When we get on a racetrack, man, it's just flat-out competition, and you want to beat them. And they want to beat us.
There's always a little inter-team competition. I mean, especially when it comes to pit stops and things like that, you always try to, you know, when the green flag drops, you're still trying to beat everybody out there. But we try to help out each other.
It's aligning yourself with people that have common goals. And common goals, winning races, championships, sacrifice, self-discipline. Those words are easy to say, but they're hard to do.
You know, it's not the easiest place to work. I'd say we work longer hours than probably any other team in the paddock. We're the first guys in the morning. We're the last guys in at night. We're, in some ways, a bit of the laughing stock of pit lane because the other guys on the teams are like, what are you doing? And what we're doing is dotting the I's and crossing the T's and making sure we haven't forgotten something. And so, you know, your personal life or your social life pays a price, but hopefully that's paid back on Sunday and you might gain a place because of just being a little more thorough than the next guy.
Dotting the I's and crossing the T's. How about eyeballing a small bit of deflection on the upper control arm and reinforcing it before the start of the race? Awesome by Newman-Haas.
That is attention to detail. We are working lap number 32, so we expect pit stops this time around.
The other team's joke, Newman-Haas.
More tires and fuel, Chris. More tires and fuel.
The other team's joke, NHR, Newman-Haas Racing, stands for no hurry because they are always the last ones to leave at night.
So 7 and 8. 2 turns from the pit in.
Because he has pit choice, he's at the end, so he doesn't have to worry about what happened in Long Beach, where he was coming out when other people were coming into the pit.
Your speed when you enter, Chris.
50-mile-an-hour pit lane speed limit. The race leader is in. Calvin Fish awaits him.
We just spoke to Peter Gibbons. We expect no changes, and this is really a trend that Cristiano has developed.
Past the bridge. Go around Kevin and hit your mark. Nice and square in the box. You got a clear approach. Go around Kevin.
Getting his directions there from his crew. Hits his marks perfectly. And I think that when Cristiano gets the car in the window that he likes, he doesn't tell his team anything. Just let me drive it, guys. I got the pace. Don't screw it up by changing the setup. Good stuff. 10.3 stop for Newman-Haas. And Tracy's on his way out as well.
Quick stop for Paul Tracy. Dario Franchitti is in. Christian Fittipaldi is in. Scott Pruitt.
He's in, he's out. No changes in the car, 4 tires and a full load of fuel. Guys?
Man, quick stops up and down the pit lane. Here come the other cars by. We'll be watching how the field settles out. Just a few moments ago, Alex Tagliani with the Players Foresight team moved aside to allow his quicker teammate Patrick Carpentier through. may have saved him a couple of positions on the racetrack.
Oh, and this just absolutely devastates Michael Andretti's strategy, because these guys all came out with Michael right behind them on hot tires, and his strategy is dependent on him able to run a bunch of quick laps in the meantime between now and his stop.
On board with Alex Tagliani. There is tags.
And so Carpentier should be close to, I think, close to leading after all this.
Today's pictures are coming to us courtesy of the host broadcaster, Molstar Sports and Entertainment. There's Tagliani.
Look at your board. Look at your board.
Cristiano D'Amata shown as the race leader. Paul Tracy, Dario Franchitti, Patrick Carpentier now into fourth. Christian Fittipaldi is fifth, and Calvin has more on him.
Well, the team were very angry. They felt that Tony Kanaan was costing them about a second a lap, so they really tried to do a quick, swift pit stop, which they did, and they jumped ahead of Tony there in the pits. They made a slight tire pressure adjustment. Christian did have a little bit of understeer, but very happy with the car otherwise.
Patrick Carpentier has to make another pit stop in another 3 laps as you look at Christian Fittipaldi. He is fifth, Tony Kanaan sixth, as Calvin mentioned. Tagliani is seventh, Junqueira eighth, Michel Jourdain is ninth.
Now Carpentier, again, getting out of sequence like he did, it only works if you're quicker, and I think that potentially was a quicker strategy, but D'Amata laying down that series of laps neutralized that whole gap before the first stop even.
On board with Carpentier, losing a little traction there. We'll swing on to Expo Boulevard. We'll take a break and return in a moment with more live from the Kart Grand Prix of Vancouver. Stay with us. Welcome back live to Concord Pacific Place. Cristiano D'Amata has just given up the race lead by pitting under a full course caution. Paul Tracy takes over as the race leader. In case you're wondering why the yellow is out, there it is. Michael Andretti in the tire wall, put there by what I would have to call a rather ambitious move by Tora Takagi, Tommy.
Ambitious is the adjective I would use. It was really wasn't even close.
Down in the turn 6 area. Simple Green Kart safety team at work. Both drivers out of their cars. Neither going any further. Here's another look. Watch the 2 cars at the top of your screen. Takagi down the inside.
Oh, let me take that back. That was
Me too.
He was a good ways up alongside. Good ways up alongside. That's a good go.
This is in real time. It looks like Michael was actually trying to give him room around the outside, and Takagi just couldn't get it slowed down.
And once Michael committed to turn in, you saw Torga head for the curbs to try to give him some room, but once Michael decided to turn in, he can only wait so long.
Father Mario looking on. Michael Andretti's 300th career start is now over. Scott Pruitt.
We talked about race strategy before the race. Now you got to remember, this is lap 36 that they just pitted on. 36 is that magic number. One more stop to the checkered for the guys that just stopped. Calvin?
We're down here with Barry Green. Barry, you decided to keep Paul out. Cristiano and a lot of the other leaders came in. They can make it now in 1 stop. You're going to need 2.
Well,
did you make the right call there, you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, he made it into the window. Obviously, you've got to go on either way. We want to stay on clean racetracks, so important around here. Dario did the opposite. We'll have to see. You know, we've got some big windows. Dario has no windows now, so we'll see. But Paul's driving well. The car's great, you know, so we'll just have to wait and see.
All right, mate, there's the word from Barry Green. And what he's saying is now those guys have to pit on lap 68. They have no fudge factor on that for everyone who pitted on that last lap.
Well, hold the phone. I may have been a little premature about Michael's race being over. Saw bits flying off the car as he drives it around. He's not far from the pit entrance.
Paul Tracy called on the radio and said, I think we're screwed. Barry said, no, you're okay. We'll go to the end of your windows. But the way Barry was stammering away there, I have a feeling that he knows that, I mean, at least for the win, I think that cost him a lot of spots, because if there was some track position, there were 6 or 7 cars stacked up behind Paul, he could get enough of a gap to get in by running to the end of the windows. But doing it this way doesn't look so good for Paul.
Calvin Fish.
Well, Michael Andretti has come in. The rear wing is loose. They've done 4 tire changes, got fuel in the car. As you can see, they send it. Well, they hold him. Now he's underway again. The left side plate is torn up, and the main element of the rear wing looked loose to me when the guys got a hold of. I think he'll be back in.
Michael makes his way back out. We are still under caution. We'll take a break and be back with more live Speed Channel coverage of round 10 of the Kart FedEx Championship in a moment. Welcome back live to Concord Pacific Place in Vancouver, Canada. Paul Tracy leads. We are back under green here at the Kart Grand Prix of Vancouver. Bob Varsha, Tommy Kendall, Derek Daly, Calvin Fish, and Scott Pruitt with you. Paul Tracy is the race leader over this man, Cristiano D'Amata. Dario Franchitti, Tracy's teammate, runs third.
And the way these pit stops play out, it could go either way. What determines what is right or wrong is how many people do what. If everybody had stayed out and Cristiano had been the only one who stopped, he would have made the wrong move. When he came in and Paul was the only guy to stay out, that ended up being the wrong move because of the track position issue.
A warm day here in Vancouver, but nothing like what it was 2 weeks ago in Cleveland, where Paul Tracy said he lost 7 pounds in sweat during the course of the race. He won the event back in 2000. His Team Green finished first and second. Dario Franchitti started from pole, wound up second to Paul Tracy. That was the most recent 1-2 finish for Team Green. The view from the Honda Skycam. Look down from our eye in the sky. Our thanks to Honda for providing the Skycam for our use here in Vancouver. Look at those grandstands. This is down in the turn 7-8 area. Michael Andretti has been back in the pits. Calvin Fish has more on him.
As we suggested, Bob, they did have to change this main plane on the rear wing here. You can see the side plate all torn up. The under brackets here are a little twisted as well, so that wasn't going to hold up for much longer. We talk about the price of parts, about 16 grand for this end. They already changed the front. That's another 16. As the team said on Friday when Michael had a slight spin and put it in the fence then, he's going to start looking at these bills a little closer now. He's a team owner, Scott Pruitt.
Michel Jourdain's day is actually improving significantly. Currently running 8th. I just got done talking to the team. They are in, they are out. What changes do you make? He said, well, the car's not quite as good as we'd like. We had to make that change with the front wing early on. We had to come in and make a front wing change. I also got an update talking to Ian Watt. That's Tony Kanaan's engineer. Do you make any changes? He said no. Tony called in and said the car's running great. We're just waiting to the end. Guys?
Michel Jourdain Jr. trying to keep a streak alive as the only driver to finish every race of the season thus far. Ride with Tony Kanaan. His best finish this year is 8th. So 5th would be a big improvement on that. Honda powered, driving for Monon Racing. Oh, Mario Dominguez is correcting a spin down in 6th. He was shown in 15th place when he spun. There's another look. Managed to avoid hitting anything, more or less.
Very similar to Jimmy Vasser, just got tried to carry a little bit too much speed, got the rear wheels locked up going in there.
Dominguez has had a protracted pit stop, so he is 8 laps down. Back on board with Kanaan. Patrick Carpentier coming off his 2nd career win in the Kart FedEx Championship. There's Dario Franchitti. Paul Tracy remains the only Canadian driver to have won on home soil in the FedEx Championship. He won in Toronto back in 1993 and here in Vancouver 2 seasons ago. Tracy came into the weekend with 222 laps led, but all of them were in his dominating victory on the Milwaukee Mile. These are the first road course laps he's led. Alvin Fish has more on Tracy.
Well, his team have told Paul Tracy, you have a full tank of fuel, go full rich, try and get a gap on D'Amato, and he certainly did that when we got back underway. First real lap when they got back up to speed, he was 3/10 faster than Cristiano.
To correct myself, Paul Tracy also led on the oval at Motegi, Japan earlier this year before suffering a wheel failure. All of his laps led were on oval track coming in. His gap 1.3 seconds last time by over Cristiano D'Amato. There's Dario Franchitti just behind D'Amato in the Chevron car.
And the race right now really is between D'Amato and Franchitti. And D'Amato, or Franchitti, looks like not only keeping him in sight, starting to pull him back in a little bit.
I was just thinking that. He may be faster at the moment.
Last lap's 1/1000th slower than Cristiano.
They have a 2-second gap over fourth place Carpentier. Another second behind the Canadian is Tony Kanaan. And another second back to Christian Fittipaldi. Got another break coming up. We'll be back in a moment for more live from the capital of the Canadian West Coast, Vancouver, British Columbia. Welcome back to the Kart Grand Prix of Vancouver. Bob Varsha along with Tommy Kendall. You ride with Patrick Carpentier, grabbing at that sequential gearbox. Forward to shift down, yank it back to go up. Carpentier shown in fourth place, about 2.5 seconds behind Dario Franchitti in third.
See how he completely lets go of the lever between shifts. The reason for that is there's a stress strain gauge that measures when you pull on it, and that's what triggers the spark interrupt. So they want to make sure they let go of the lever completely between shifts. Is that right, Scott?
That's exactly right. In fact, I just got done talking to Bruce Ashmore, his engineer, and he said things are going perfect. Everything's falling back in our favor, which is kind of nice for a change. The car's working very well. Patrick's not complaining about it at all. In fact, our days turn out a lot better than we expected. Guys?
Thanks very much. There's a look at Patrick Carpentier on the racetrack. Ride him, cowboy. Working his way out toward the backstretch. Ahead of him on the road are Paul Tracy, Cristiano D'Amato, and Dario Franchitti. Now they'll make their way down Quebec Street to the turn 6, 7, 8 complex, and down there, if they look quickly to their left, they'll see Derek Daly.
And Data, my all-access pass gives me access here to watching Paul Tracy and D'Amato round turn 6 here. They've almost got identical lines, and of course as they accelerate down through here, I can just occasionally hear the traction control. But have a look over here. I want to just show our viewers, when they build these street circuits, the safety barriers are literally just these huge big concrete blocks. They literally lift them up, place them side by side, tag on a bit of this fencing for debris fencing, and I will tell you, it very much goes together like children's Lego.
That they do. This may be embarrassing for that particular race official, but you're not supposed to sit on those barriers. They weigh about 8,000 pounds, but in an accident, they can be moved by these 1,600-pound race cars. There's Cristiano D'Amato. There you see his gap opening up. Excuse me, his gap to Paul Tracy opening up. I am just so used to Cristiano being out front. This is a bit of a mind adjustment. D'Amato continuing on his way. Is he simply not as good as the race leader, or is he biding his time? Let's get more from the pit lane.
Well, Michael Andretti was actually just in a game, Bob. Big problems with the rear suspension, we believe. They did a tire change, sort of like hung on to the suspension. Everything looked okay. They sent him again, but he's still saying a big problem. And right at that moment, Kyle Moyer, Dario Franchitti's crew chief, came running down, knocking tires out of the way, came up to Kim Green. He said, make sure when Michael goes out, he doesn't hold up Dario. We have to keep the pressure on Cristiano D'Amato.
What's your guess, Calvin Fish? Has D'Amata got cards for Tracy, or is he just being outrun at this point?
I'm sorry, Bob, I didn't hear the question.
Is Cristiano being outrun by Paul, or has he got something for him?
Well, I think what may be happening here is Paul has been told to go full rich, and I think Cristiano may be trying to save fuel. He realizes that Paul is really not a factor here unless we get a yellow. The race is against Dario Franchitti right now, as Tommy mentioned, so I think Cristiano should be saving fuel, and Paul is just going for it, trying to build a gap.
Paul is a lot further back in points than Dario Franchitti, who comes into this race third behind D'Amata and Bruno Junqueira. Scott Dixon out of the race early on. Scott Pruitt is with him.
A scary ride out there. Do you know what happened?
You know, obviously we had the problem earlier this week, but, you know, we don't really know what happened. You know, we thought we knew what the problem was from Bruno's accident, I think on Friday or Saturday, and you know, we just went back on LL, you know, suspension to, you know, the stuff that we've been running all year, and we're not sure why it happened. We didn't have any contact previous to that lap or anything, so, you know, just going into the break into 6, it just collapsed.
Now, up until that, looks like everything was going fine. Any funny feeling, or just go?
No, the car was good. You know, Team Tiger done a good job. You know, we worked on the race car a little bit, but, you know, obviously it's just a problem we've got, and we're not sure, and we're going to have to try and work it out.
See you at Mid-Ohio. Tough weekend for the Team Target, guys.
No question about that. D'Amata continues on his way. Getting back to Paul Tracy in the points. Tracy is 11th in the points, but he picked up the bonus point for provisional pole on Friday, giving him a total of 51. That puts him within 1 point of a 3-way tie for 8th place in the standings between Michael Andretti, Alex Tagliani, and the man you just heard from, Scott Dixon. We'll be back to Vancouver in a moment.
Welcome back live to the Molson Indy Vancouver. And the kart grid is stacked with talent, but so is the Miss Indy contest. And check out the smile on Cristiano D'Amata's face. We say he's all about racing. Well, the guys love to come to Vancouver, and I found there's usually a correlation between the babe factor in the town and how much guys like to come to the city.
I think the bar was significantly raised this weekend here in Vancouver. Welcome back to round 10 of the Kart FedEx Championship Series. TK, just the man to take you on that guided tour of the wildlife here in the Canadian Pacific Coast. There's Science World Dome down there. There's an IMAX theater in there playing that terrific movie called Speedway. Mario Andretti driving the camera car. If you haven't seen it, find an IMAX theater near you and check it out. There's Tony Kanaan holding down 5th place, which would be his best finish of the year. He's got Christian Fittipaldi just behind him, and Bruno Junqueira, 1 little, 2 little, 3 little Brazilians running nose to tail. Down to Derek Daly.
Bob, just a quick observation. No matter what happened on the racetrack, what sticks in my mind so far is what Tommy overheard on the radio from Paul Tracy. We're screwed now. Paul Tracy has been known to make, let's say, emotional or irrational decisions in a racing car. However, since John Anderson has gone there as team manager, he really has taken control of Paul, and he told me just 2 races ago he sees a definite mental maturity about Paul, and he believes Paul is driving better than ever. So Paul will have to knuckle down and emotionally and mentally get himself strong and focused and hope he can still pull this off despite the fact that he thinks he was screwed. Calvin?
Well, just an update on Cristiano D'Amata. We spoke to Peter Gibbons, and he confirmed that they are running lean on fuel, and that's why Paul Tracy is pulling away, and he said, don't forget, he has an extra pit stop to make. But when we talk about his teammate, Dario Franchitti, he's on fresh sticker tires on that last run, and he's also got another set left. This team, and all the teams in this series, get 7 sets of Bridgestone tires to use for the weekend. Dario and his team have been conserving tires, trying not to use them up too much in practice, and 2 fresh sets for the race is definitely an advantage. They will be quicker over the first 8 to 10 laps, then things should stabilize during that final run.
Cristiano D'Amata was 16th with very few good laps in his race cars on Friday. He said, for the first time in my career, I'm going to the hotel with no idea what I need to do to improve the race car. I would say it's worked. Oriol Servia currently shown in 9th between Michel Jourdain Jr. and Alex Tagliani. Scott Pruitt has more on him.
He just came by here in the Visteon car, and the thing was missing extremely bad, having all sorts of problems. I'm not sure if he had a problem getting it in gear or missing or whatever the case might be, but it certainly was off song.
Another stop from Mario Dominguez. shown 8 laps down as you look at Oriol Servia in for Townsend Bell. Had a very rough start to his rookie year in the Kart FedEx Championship Series. He continues to test with the team, however, and hopes to get back. Now here's a look at the pit situation. Paul Tracy made his last stop on lap 32, so he must pit by lap 64. That is 6 laps from right now. D'Amata, Franchitti, Carpentier, and Kanaan, the cars behind him in the running order, pitted 4 laps later, and consequently will not have to pit for another 4 laps.
Well, they've definitely set Paul back, but what Paul has to do now is, Cristiano is not really a factor. He probably needs to, in the next 60-some laps, he needs, or 48, 2 laps, he needs to try to come up with a 28-second gap on Cristiano. That's not going to happen. But where he slots in, how to make the best out of this, can he run quick enough and take advantage of the clear track on this stretch and the next one after the other guys stop on 68 to see where that puts him in the final order? Can he get up, maybe salvage a 3rd, 4th, and 5th? If he keeps running like this, he might be able to.
Might get a podium out of it. This is the visor cam on Paul Tracy. You heard Derek talk about what a mature racer he has become. Given all that he has to do in the race car, performing at the peak of his physical powers, remember these cars have no power steering, he is also constantly thinking about where he is in the race, and he is considering pit strategy while he's driving around here at over 100 miles an hour in average speed. Earning his money today is Paul Tracy. There's a look in the Team Green pits. We'll be back with more in just a moment from Vancouver.
Back everybody to Vancouver, British Columbia, where as usual I have the best seat in the house. Now this may not be the French Riviera, and I know it's not Monte Carlo, but I will tell you one thing, and I assure you it might even be better than all of those. Now when I was an F1 star, of course, and lived in Monte Carlo, I never got invited to yachts like this. But of course now that I'm a TV star with, of course, the All Access Pass, Dan Duke here kindly invited me on board his yacht, Flipper. It is located right in the middle of the harbor, has a wonderful view, but more than that, look at the guest he has. Will Prapp is over here, Jimmy Vassar's manager. To the right of him is, of course, Jimmy's dad enjoying it. Keith Hilton is also here. Keith, of course, has the super successful Hilton Motorsports Toyota Atlantic team. So I may make it back to the paddock in time to do a few more reports, but only after, of course, I have my wonderful lunch here. Tommy and Bob, eat your heart out.
Yeah, thanks, Derek. Wait till he finds out we sent a frogman out there to cut his dinghy loose.
Hey, when I was on that boat, that hot tub was full of ladies, but when Derek showed up, they obviously scattered like cockroaches when you turned the light on.
There's a look from our Honda Skycam. We expect the race leader in the pits momentarily, Calvin Fish.
Well, I just spoke to the team, and John Anderson said we desperately need a yellow, and we need it now. If it went yellow now, Paul could pit. The rest of the people out there, the rest of the drivers wouldn't pit because they wouldn't hit their window, which happens on lap 68. So Paul Tracy needs a yellow, and he needs it in the next 2 laps. Otherwise, that race may be over for him in terms of victory.
While we were away, Tony Kanaan got around Patrick Carpentier, so the order is now Tracy, D'Amata, Franchitti, Kanaan, Carpentier, Fittipaldi. The rest you see across the top of your screen.
Based on my calculations, Paul Tracy's pace has put him, he'd come out right about 5th spot, right about where Carpentier, either 5th or 6th. So if he can keep running these quick laps, then he'll have another opportunity to do the same. It's almost better if it stays green and they get the yellow at the tail end right before his final stop, so he can continue running on this clear track.
Ooh. Expected to pit this time around. Last lap, a 62.1 seconds. Fastest car on the racetrack. The gap about 6.5 seconds to the second place D'Amata. But the piece of racetrack he'll be looking for when he comes out, as Tommy mentioned, 5th or 6th. He has a 30-second lead over Patrick Carpentier in 5th.
Based on the first stop, Cristiano lost about 28 seconds cumulative with his pit stop and out lap.
Calvin Fish awaits Paul Tracy.
Just talked to Barry Green. He said Paul is just doing excellent lap times. He's got a clear track. He's been able to really put the hammer down. And we're still not out of this one yet. He said if we get a yellow after everyone else has pitted under green, that may give us enough time to actually catch up to the rest of the field. We're just going to keep going for it. He's going to go full reach once again. Sticker tires and a 9-second flat pit stop for Team Green.
Tony Kanaan just came around the corner at the head of the straightaway. Paul Tracy will come out fourth, if I'm not mistaken. Here comes Patrick Carpentier and Bruno Junqueira.
Now Paul will fight like crazy on cold tires.
Oh, Christian Fittipaldi just straight lined turn 10, and he's moving slowly.
As is Cristiano.
D'Amata going slowly. The two Newman Haas cars at the same moment. Trying to find a gear is D'Amata.
Take it in, Chris.
Box full of neutrals.
I don't take gears. Okay, wait for safety cars, get them for you.
Fittipaldi has made the pit. So the team will get a look at his car, and that may tell them something about what's wrong with D'Amata's, but he is as far away as he can be. And what a boost this would be for Paul Tracy. There is Christian Fittipaldi climbing out. Calvin Fish.
Well, Cristiano is still out there. He's claiming that he has a box full of neutrals as well, and Christian has actually pulled it in. He's jumped out of the car. He's now taking his helmet off. Try and get a word with him. Christian, what's the problem? He wants to get the helmet off first and have a quick chat with the crew, but what a coincidence. Both the cars on the same lap having problems. Everything seemed to be going well. What's the issue, Christian?
The gearbox broke.
Any indication before that? Was everything working perfectly or not?
No, the indication that there was no drive, so it was time to stop. What can I say? We had a bad second pit stop, but apart from that, everything was working pretty well. But it's very tough to pass over here. But what can you say?
Did you know that your teammate has had a problem on the same lap? We believe transmission as well.
I don't have a clue. I'm paying attention to my to my race. I don't know what's happening with the other cars out there.
Okay, as you can tell, Christian absolutely frustrated. The day is over. He hasn't had a best of luck recently. Remember that wheel came off on him in Chicago and ran out of fuel at Cleveland. It cost him valuable points.
Safety gets to you.
Local yellow for D'Amata. He's over at the support pit area. What an up and down year for Christian Fittipaldi. His finishes 3rd, 13th, 12th, 17th, 2nd, 13th, 14th, 3rd, 12th. And no doubt a bad finish today for the Brazilian. Derek Daly.
With Oriol Serbia. Oriol, I know you didn't want to end up here, but what happened?
Gearbox. I mean, these are machines. Sometimes they break. They broke today, you know, not... My first day on the Visteon car was a shame because the car was strong. I mean, we started 15, not what we wanted to start, but we made some improvements in the car and we're moving forward. We were 9th. And it was going to be not spectacular, but it was going to be, I think, a top 6 finish, which is good, you know. Good result to thank Mr. Patrick for giving me the chance to jump in the car, but couldn't happen, so we'll have to wait till next week.
Okay, thank you, Oriol.
Well, we've seen gearboxes go in both Lola's and Reynard's as we go on board now with Patrick Carpentier, who's shown in 4th.
And the same kind of accordion, loading, unloading, loading, unloading. The suspension feels, the gearbox and driveline feels that as well. And you can see Carpentier very deliberately avoiding the curbs in the 11 and 12 complex.
The 2 is in a Reynard. So the order is now Dario Franchitti, the race leader, by 17 seconds, almost 18 seconds over Tony Kanaan, with Paul Tracy about 2.5 seconds back in 3rd. Here comes the race leader. Calvin Fish awaits Dario Franchitti.
Well, the race has certainly swung these guys' way right now. Dario Franchitti has just the slightest bit of understeer. I just spoke to Alan McDonald, just half a pound of tire pressure adjustment in the front going down with that. He logs it up, bringing it in. And as I said, he's got sticker tires. Now, these should be much faster. They'll probably take a couple of laps to come in, but then he should have a very good car with a good balance underneath him. With the final drop of fuel, good stop by Team Green.
Dario Franchitti has been knocking on the door, looking for a win. Scott Pruitt is at Tony Kanaan's pit.
Yeah, Tony came in, hit his marks, 4 tires, no changes, and a full load of fuel. And wait, and there he goes. no changes. Also, Patrick Carpentier is sitting here. The same thing, no changes. He slipped ahead a little bit, 4 tires, fuel, and he's on his way. Got out just, real close between Michel Jourdain and Patrick. Guys.
On board with Alex Tagliani as he makes his way back out. Final stops.
The order right before that stop was representative of what it will be like at the end after Paul makes his last one. So Paul, again, now will have clear track ahead. If he can put in a bunch of clear laps, he can probably pull himself ahead of Kanaan, but perhaps not Franchitti.
Now, we've said it over and over this year, when a driver as dominant as Cristiano D'Amata has a problem, those pursuing him for the championship have to take advantage. 2 weeks ago in Cleveland, it didn't happen. D'Amata dropped out. Now, is this Bruno Junqueira with problems? I was just about to say, Dario Franchitti broke and Bruno Junqueira broke.
Look at the right front wheel. Looks like the suspension broke, on the left front.
If you're going to catch D'Amata for the championship, you have to succeed when he fails, as rarely as it happens.
That wheel should be cambered in slightly.
And Paul Tracy, in his rush to get by Junqueira, nearly touched wheels with him. In fact, he did touch. There is Tracy.
So that's a situation where Bruno's probably talking on the radio back and forth with his crew. His race is over, forgetting there's other people out there racing. And this is, again, where Paul needs to put some time in. 3/4 tenths at a time. He was able to claw himself back up to a podium spot. And if he wants to try to get ahead of Kanaan, look at him. He is not avoiding the curbs.
And Tracy, who just a few laps ago thought he was screwed on the day, to quote Paul. There's a look at that tire-to-tire contact.
Wow, and it rode up over the wing plate. I'm surprised the wing is still where it's supposed to be.
That's the kind of rash move that Derek Daly was talking about earlier with regard to Paul Tracy, who now leads the race. Derek Daly. I beg your pardon, Scott Pruitt.
Yeah, I'm done. I just got done talking to the Ganassi team. The problem was I think they let the car down early, didn't get all the tires tight. They came in just as a precaution. 4 tires, putting them on again, filling the thing back up with fuel. Tough break for the Target team. All 3 cars have a tough day.
So what happened there is the left front wheel was loose, but it was captured by the safety nut, and so it was just off the splines, but it was cocked out but held on by the safety nut.
Good to see those things working again after all the problems we had with loose wheels earlier in the season. Another look at Paul Tracy trying to overtake Junqueira. Watch the left front. Ooh.
Wow, I have never seen a wing lift a whole car off the ground and not snap.
That could have been a lot worse for Paul Tracy, who now leads his teammate Dario Franchitti by 12.1 seconds. We'll be back with more from Vancouver. Concord Pacific Place, home for the 13th year. The Kart FedEx Grand Prix of Vancouver. I'm Bob Varsha, along with Tommy Kendall, Derek Daly, Calvin Fish, and Scott Pruitt. Glad to have you with us here in Vancouver. Metropolitan area of 1.7 million people. And the Chinatown area is the 3rd largest in North America, behind San Francisco and New York. It is a great restaurant town. Paul Tracy leads Dario Franchitti in a Team Green 1-2. Suspensions have been the order of the day. Here's one of our Toyota spotlights. Scott Pruitt taking a look at suspensions.
One of those tricky innovations for road courses over the years has been the 3rd spring. To explain it right would probably take me about 3 hours. We're going to try and do it in about 30 seconds. So let's just jump underneath this piece of bodywork here, and this is it. Now, this isn't a 3rd spring here. This is actually bump rubbers. You can use bump rubbers. You can use a spring. This whole mechanism can be a spring shock assembly. All teams are doing different things the way that they're using this. How does it work? Well, the reason they designed this was because of these primary springs. You want to run these as soft as possible. The trade-off is you got to raise the car up so much to keep it from crashing into the ground, you lose a lot of aero downforce. That's a bad thing. So what happens is as the springs compress at about a 1/4 inch of travel, which you can see here, this 3rd spring or these bump rubbers come into effect. These are about 800 pounds. These are about 3,000 pounds. Through this linkage right here, as it transfers, comes right into this mechanism here and keeps the car up off the ground on these fast straights like here at Vancouver. The thing that you can do
do these primary springs as the car goes into roll. As it rolls, it goes down this, swivels here, so you're only on the primary springs in the turns. On a straight, the third spring. It's very difficult to get right. Those teams who do it are running at the front.
The reason it crashes the ground on the straightaways is as you go to speed, the downforce overpowers the spring rate. So you either have to run stiffer or this third spring was a way around that, as Scott explained.
Of our 18 starters, 10 cars remain. Paul Tracy is the race leader by about 13.5 seconds over Dario Franchitti. But of the top 10, Paul Tracy and fourth place Shinji Nakano still have stops to make. Everyone else is clean and green to the finish. We'll be back. Welcome back live here on Speed Channel to the Kart Grand Prix of Vancouver, round 10 on the Kart FedEx Championship Series for 2002. Bob Varsha, Tommy Kendall, Derek Daly, Calvin Fish, and Scott Pruitt here. Ride with Tony Kanaan in third place. Let's take a look at the highlights of the event thus far. On the first run down into turn one, a couple of collisions. Michael Andretti gets tapped by Christian Fittipaldi into a spin, and behind him, Jimmy Vasser spins and collects Kenny Brack. On board with Kenny Brack. Repeated incidents between Vasser and Brack this year, but that one was just bad racing luck. On lap 9, Scott Dixon suffered an ominous-looking right front suspension failure in the Target Ganassi Lola. Luckily, he did not hit anything. There you see the damage done when that suspension collapsed. We've had a rash of those this weekend. On lap 34, Toru Takagi almost had a move down the inside of Michael Andretti, but couldn't get the car stopped. They had contact. Takagi was done. Michael Andretti is limping around in 10th. Lap 64, Cristiano D'Amata pitted and appeared to have things well under control. Paul Tracy took over the race lead in what appeared at the time might have been a strategic blunder. But then Cristiano D'Amata lost the gearbox in his Chevron Newman Haas Lola. At almost the same moment, his teammate, Christian Fittipaldi in the Lilly car, did likewise. On lap 69, Paul Tracy, in a rush to open a race lead over his teammate Dario Franchitti, almost went under the rear wheel of Bruno Junqueira. Right now, Paul Tracy leads, working lap number 81. Here's a look at our Bridgestone race summary. 4 lead changes and 4 full course cautions for a total of 8 laps. These are the cars out of the race. Huge disappointment for Jimmy Vasser and Kenny Brack. And Cristiano D'Amata, for the second straight race, the championship leader, suffers problems. It remains to be seen whether anyone is going to be able to take advantage. Let's get down to Calvin Fish.
Well, Paul Tracy on this run could extend his run all the way to lap 96, but I just looked at the team. They're probably going to bring him in about 4 to 5 laps. That way they can put fuel in and allow him to run full rich the rest of the way. If they stretched it out, he'd have to go a little bit lean on this run if he went to lap 96 and wouldn't have the speed that he needs. They believe that he will overtake Kanaan once he stopped, or assume second place behind Dario after the stop, but they still have to run down Dario Franchitti. They need to run full rich and on fresh rubber.
There is Shinji Nakano, the only driver other than Paul Tracy with a stop to make. Scott Pruitt.
Shinji Nakano came in, the car's working just like they wanted to. No changes, 4 tires and fuel, and it got about 9.5 seconds, guys.
So even with the rules aimed at eliminating guys saving fuel, because of the premium placed on how little time you are stopped in your pit, at some point along the way, Paul Tracy took a short fill, and so he's putting it, this is an absolutely beautiful performance. He's pulling out on Franchitti between a half a second and 7/8 a lap, but now he's run out of fuel. If he could have done that for the final 14 laps of this run, it might have been close. But Paul Tracy, a beautiful performance to come back from what in hindsight obviously was not the right pit call.
Now at Team Green, the teams all work together. Paul Tracy, Dario Franchitti, and Michael Andretti's Motorola Club. Do Paul Tracy's guys let Dario's guys know what their plan is to try to get Paul in and out?
Well, they're independent. They're really racing themselves right now.
Exactly.
Nothing Dario can do will be changed by what Paul does. Their courses are set. Right. Now, whichever one executes better, Dario has a huge upper hand because of that earlier call.
The gap is now 15.6 seconds from Paul Tracy to Dario Franchitti. Tony Kanaan, 39 seconds and change behind, so the gap from him to Tracy is opening up. Kanaan not likely to be a threat when Paul comes in for this quick stop. Tracy likely to come out in second place.
That last lap, 1.2 seconds quicker than Dario, and he is definitely going to keep the heat on here. It's up to 16.8 seconds, the gap. I think he needs probably 25, 26. This is heroic stuff.
The team is in the pit lane. Approaching the pit entrance. Doesn't take it that time by. This is working lap number 85.
You see that traffic up ahead. Paul will probably, as soon as he catches that car, they're laid out waiting for him. The minute he gets impeded in any way, he will be in the pits.
So the numbers have been crunched in the pits. It'll be a timed fuel stop. Mario Dominguez pits again.
Pulled out a half a second that lap.
Gap is now 17.2 from Tracy to Franchitti. There is the crew.
Now, even when he comes out behind Dario, if he does, depending on how long he's stopped, if he still has a speed advantage, he'll have the rest of the race. Here he is.
Tracy is in.
Still have the rest of the race to try to close up on Dario and try to get by.
It's in the hands of the pit crew. Calvin Fish.
Well, this is the things that they practice every day now in the workshop. All of the teams rehearse these pit stops. They need to get the Buckeye in straight. They need to get it clean. And they need a good tire stop. Paul is shaking his head a little bit. He's saying, what's going on? Are we going to be in good shape for this one? Quick film there, and he's underway. 9.1 seconds for Paul Tracy.
Dario Franchitti has gone by. As Paul Tracy came into the pits, that big grandstand behind his pits came to their feet and began applauding Tracy before the Canadian even came to a stop. And he is back on track in second place, well ahead of Tony Kanaan. Once again, our pictures today coming to you courtesy of Molestar Sports and Entertainment.
Dario came by while Paul was stationary, so Paul has to get out and get his tires up to speed, or up to temp, before we see exactly how much of a gap Dario has, but expect it to be somewhere north of probably 11 or 12 seconds.
So at this point, it looks like another Team Green 1-2 is in the offing, the first since Vancouver of 2000, but then it was Tracy over Franchitti. Dario in position, should he win this race, to take a big bite out of Cristiano Damata's lead in the championship.
There's an article on the front page of the paper the other day. Paul Tracy said, I don't think this championship's over, and everybody says, you're nuts, but he says, hey, Cristiano had a bad race, he could have another one. I don't think this thing's over. I'm still in this, much less Dario.
Kenny Brack was sitting next to him on the podium when he made that comment. Kenny shook his head. Paul looked at him and said, you don't believe me? Calvin Fish.
Well, when Paul Tracy was in the pits, he was communicating with the crew. He said, I'm absolutely beaking the heck out of the car and myself. I'm driving flat out. The team say, you're doing a beautiful job, Paul. And as he left the pits, there was a scare. He radioed in. He thought his finger had slipped off the pit speed limiter button, and he may have speeded going out of the pits, but we've had no report from race control that there was any problem there. So he may have got away with one there, guys.
You got that right. There's race control. Watching with you. Paul Tracy has picked up the bonus point for most laps led, so he'll move into that tie for 8th in the championship, but this is about the win. Welcome back to Vancouver. Don't forget, tonight, Speed News is coming your way here on Speed Channel. 30 minutes of NASCAR news and information at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, followed by another 30 minutes of news from around the rest of the motorsports world at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. It's Speed News, only on Speed Channel, Sunday night at 7 p.m. We have a full course yellow here in Vancouver, so that will close up the field and close an 8-second gap from leader Dario Franchitti to second place Paul Tracy. And there is the reason. Debris through turn 6 up toward turn 7, and here's how it happened.
Same problem a number of the drivers have had all weekend.
Shinji Nakano backs it into the tire wall.
Knocking the rear wing off on the tires. Well, needless to say, what this does is this bunches up the gap that, watch this piece leave, the gap between Dario and Paul Tracy with team owner Michael Andretti right in between the two of them. And remember Houston a few years back? This is where Barry Green's saying, all right, guys, we got a 1-2. Let's just settle in. Dario had the radio problem at the start of the race. This is where Paul says, come again, I can't hear you. Come again.
Get too much static. So this will be a restart to watch. It will come with about 9 laps to go in the race. Derek Daly.
And this will be a street fight of epic proportions. As you mentioned earlier, everybody you can see in the grandstand rose to their feet as soon as the yellow came out. They know so much about motor racing here. They could read the race as it was going on. They are passionate supporters, particularly of Paul Tracy. You can see them cheer again. 161,728 people came here over the 3 days, and their hero, Paul Tracy, is the man they're now cheering for.
On board with Paul Tracy. Now we have 3 Team Green cars running nose to tail. Dario Franchitti and Paul Tracy split by the lapped car of Michael Andretti. Calvin Fish?
Well, I just asked Kyle Meyer who bought Michael Andretti dinner last night, Paul or Dario, and he smiled. But actually, Michael just made a pit stop, so that's out of the equation now. Bigger question is, does Dario have the pace of Paul today?
Well, I'm not for sure if he's got the pace. I mean, Paul's got a great car. Dario's got a great car. It depends on what time of the race it was. But, you know, right now it's a cool 1-2 right now, and I think that's how we want to keep it and finish it. You know, these are tough competitors. But right now, I think we're in the position to win this thing as long as we get a good restart.
You've been running up and talking to Barry down at Paul Tracy's pit and talking about strategy, so on and so forth, asking Paul when he was going to pit. But right now, are there any team orders, or are these boys just going to fight it out?
Right now, there is no team orders, you know, except for don't do anything absolutely stupid. But, you know, I mean, they're both professionals. They're good drivers. They're going to take care of each other, I hope. So we'll be looking good.
All right, like on green, it's going to be a great fight out there, guys.
No question about it. Safety car driver Melanie Patterson has brought that machine off the track. We are in turn 10.
10.
Irene Chambers, the voice of race control.
And Paul Tracy is not wanting to accept second place. He is lighting up the radios.
Flag, we are green.
Good jump for Dario Franchitti. And an equal space between Paul Tracy and Tony Kanaan. Adrian Fernandez took a look up the inside of Alex Tagliani. You're on board with Tracy. Oh, spin! Patrick Carpentier. Did he not hit anything? Now behind him, Adrian Fernandez has crashed, and Bruno Junqueira. On the left is Fernandez, the right Junqueira.
Cold tires through that flat-out kink.
And Carpentier spinning in front of them. Now there's Carpentier, the left front is gone. Pulling off in turn 6.
Oh, Pat lost it in the back straightaway, and Fernandez just like bumped me in the back.
Yeah, 10-4. We know it wasn't your fault.
This with 8 laps to go in the race. We heard Carpentier on the radio. We saw Junqueira out of the car. There's Bruno Junqueira.
Bruno, his team, he was poised to make up some big ground on the points again.
Here's Carpentier's spin.
Does get into the inside wall, but not too badly.
And he says he got hit.
That was Tags that was saying Carp lost it, and then Tags got hit from behind by Fernandez.
Tagliani and Fernandez got together and hit the wall.
Wow.
Mario Dominguez threading his way through the damage. You see the tail of Junqueira's car.
And now we have a big cleanup. There was
do we red flag? No sign of it yet.
Dario had made a nice getaway on that restart. Oh, with that, look at that.
That's Tagliani who lost the left front. And the red flag is out. Scary moment for Alex Tagliani.
They cannot work on the cars.
Now the red flag is out. There'll be no work done on the cars. And 8 laps remain in the race.
This is the first time we've seen this. This is CART's effort to guarantee a green flag finish.
You saw Tagliani and Junqueira. There's Gary Barnard, senior manager of competition, just leaning out of your picture. Scott Pruitt.
Team manager for the players team, Neil Mickerite. Neil, big crash on the back straight. Any idea what happened?
I mean, I haven't spoken to Patrick, but from what I've been able to see on the TV, it looked as though Patrick started to lose it there on the back straight. He was able to keep the car under control, but obviously the cars behind him, including Tagliani and Fernandez, they all sort of checked up, and I think Fernandez hit Tag in the rear end. Obviously nothing he could do about that. It was totally unintentional, but that created quite a mess behind the problem that Patrick was having originally.
Now, Patrick was having a great day. He started back in 16th, was running right up at the front. Things look like they're going to be playing out well. Did it look like he had a little contact, or did you think it happened on his own?
No, I'm pretty sure it happened all on his own. I think with it being the restart there, I think he was being fairly, quite aggressive, and maybe the tires weren't quite warm enough. But it got away from him, but there was no contact.
Well, the players' teams, a little tough day for these guys. Let's go back up to the booth, guys.
A chaotic moment on the backstretch. There's the Simple Green safety team working on Adrian Fernandez, who is still in the car. Meanwhile, the rest of the cars are brought into the pit lane under the red flag. We'll take a break, sort things out, and return live to the streets of Vancouver in a moment. Welcome back live to Vancouver. Don't forget, coming up tonight on Speed Channel, an encore presentation of this morning's German Formula One Grand Prix. If you missed the action, check it out tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Speed Channel, your home for the Formula One World Driving Championship. It's a look down on Fraser Creek, a lagoon full of boats. Science World on the left, the pit straightaway running left to right across the bottom of your screen from the Honda Skycam. They are still working on Adrian Fernandez. We are told that the situation is non-life threatening, but there is some injury there. Dr. Terry Trammell, Lon Bromley, Dave Hollander, and the crew working on Adrian Fernandez. We'll bring you information as soon as we have it. There's a look into the eyes of race leader Dario Franchitti as we are under a red flag. Calvin Fish.
Well, just checked in with some of the car officials. They really cannot do too much to the race car in terms of the crew working on it. They've got the auxiliary battery in, so when they go to refire, it doesn't drain the main battery. They've also taken the engine cover off. Any heat-related problems they're allowed to look at, so they take the engine cover off. You can see this wet rag on the side pod so it doesn't burn that down. These exhausts get extremely hot. With no airflow, it just compounds that situation. So no other work can be done. They're allowed to inspect the car, but they could not work on the car unless it was under green flag conditions.
Vancouver, and right now Paul Tracy and
Dario Franchitti getting a drink.
Sitting there on pit road.
We have 8 laps to go in the race. They will send the field around. Look at the buildup on Paul Tracy's right front. Scott Pruitt.
That's exactly what they're taking a good close look at here. You can take a good close look at that buildup. That's one thing you want to keep off these tires. These Bridgestone Potendas, they work really good, but you cannot take a chance on having this buildup. It makes the car real squirrely. And as you said, actually using a little damage. Let's grab the camera right back here. You can see there's a little damage right here on the side pod, right where cool is. It's split off there. That shouldn't cause any major problems, but it is a little bit of a factor. And for Paul Tracy, he's got the fan on him right now, getting a little cool air going on him.
Hey, Scott, why don't you take a look at that left front wing end plate where he got into the back of Junqueira. See what that looks like.
I'm running around the car right now. You can grab a shot right across here, Morrow. You can see where he got, yeah, right there. Did have a little contact out there, as we talked about. A little bit of rubber on the front.
Now, CART has observers with each car, so they have someone there to make sure that all that is done is the maintenance stuff that's allowed in terms of the heat and the battery sort of precautions, I should say.
And they don't need a lot of personnel to do that. 7 cars are lined up in the pit lane. When we go green, there will be 7 laps remaining in the Grand Prix of Vancouver. We'll take another break and be back live in just a moment.
Welcome back, everybody. We are down at the crash site. That is Lon Bromley, Director of Safety, who is just about to get back into the Simple Green Safety Team truck. He told me Fernandez does not appear to have any serious injuries. They just took the car away. You can see the tire marks all over the place. But Lon Bromley would not talk to us. But thankfully, he said, despite the fact that Fernandez's car is very heavily damaged, thankfully, he says it doesn't appear there are any serious injuries. Calvin?
Well, we're just going to check in here with Eric Havison, who looks after PT's car. And Eric, are there any concerns when a car sits like this in terms of heat, tire pressure, anything before you go back to green?
Well, yeah, obviously the tire pressures are a concern, but the engine will heat soak a little bit. I think we'll probably be all right. Sometimes the fuel might do a little bit of a boil and get a vapor lock, but I think we're going to be okay.
What's Paul saying? I mean, we're not able to talk to Paul. I know CART have requested that. What is he saying to you? Does he have a car he can go give Dario a hard time for the next 7 laps?
Well, we sure hope so, Calvin. Right now, obviously, we just want to make sure we get back out there and get running, and hopefully we can put a good 1-2 finish together for cool.
All right, mate, we're looking forward to it. Let's go down to Scott.
This is one of the things that CART talked about this year. For the fans, we are not going to finish under yellow. They're going to wait this thing out, go for the checkered. The guy in the midst of that big problem just a few minutes ago, Patrick Carpentier, we did think the front of his car did get hit. We just took a close look at it. Does not look like there's any scratches whatsoever. Unbelievable, but no scratches whatsoever. Guys?
All right, thanks very much. You're still under the red flag as you take a look from the onboard camera of Alex Tagliani's car. Let's give you another look now at what happened as that 4-car accident unfolded. Tagliani, Fernandez, Junqueira, and to a certain extent Patrick Carpentier. Here was the initial spin. Carpentier drives off. Behind him, his teammate Alex Tagliani damages the left front. Suspension is broken, and the front left wheel tucks under. On board with Carpentier. Watch this amazing spin without hitting anything. Now Tagliani's leap. Of course, behind them, Adrian Fernandez hit the wall heavily on the driver's right, and Bruno Junqueira out as well. Here's a look at our Bridgestone race summary. The leader is Dario Franchitti, 10 laps led. The point for most laps led has gone to his teammate, Paul Tracy. 6 lead changes, 7 cars of the 18 starters remain in the race. There's Calvin with Bruno.
Bruno, it's been a rough weekend for you, mate. I'm glad to see you're okay once again. Did you see what initiated that whole crash sequence down there?
Because I was 1 lap down, I let those guys go a little bit, just in case of an accident. But that's the fastest corner of the track, and just out of that corner, looks like one of the players' cars spun. And then Adrian Fernandez crashed him, and I braked, but I had nowhere to go. You know, I had time to avoid the accident. I look on the left, there was a player's car spun, and on the right, I saw a small space, then Adrian started to spin to the right, and then the track was blocked, and I T-boned him.
Well, tough day for Bruno Junqueira. He thought the target car was certainly had a potential to be on the podium, even where he was sitting in the race, guys.
All right, thanks very much, Calvin. Bruno Junqueira will certainly give up 2nd place in the championship points when this race comes to a conclusion shortly. We'll be with you. Welcome back to Vancouver and our final Toyota Spotlight of the day, featuring the 3 Canadian drivers in today's CART Grand Prix of Vancouver. Paul Tracy, Dario Franchitti starting in the first 2 rows of this race, managed to avoid that first turn melee. race was Alex Tagliani.
Right as well, just in case you're wondering. Get ready. Go, 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 go.
Neil Mickelwright telling him that the front of the car was okay after he got involved in some banging. Patrick Carpentier didn't qualify well, but was coming forward through the field. He and Alex Tagliani both with a solid shot at a good performance today. Carpentier recovered from a slight spin. Meanwhile, Paul Tracy has been fighting for the race lead all day long. When Cristiano D'Amata dropped out, Tracy's chance of a win had a new lease on life. And this was the pivotal moment that brought out the red flag on lap 92 of 100. When Patrick Carpentier spun, behind him, Bruno Jaquera and Adrian Fernandez collided. Alex Tagliani suffered a front suspension failure on his Reynard and took this wild ride.
And you see the tether failed. It's supposed to keep that wheel attached to the car.
So it's been an interesting day for the Canadians in this race. Now Melanie Patterson pulls the pace car off the pit lane. We expect a restart shortly, and we'll be back for it. Red flag for 16 minutes and 28 seconds after a 3-car accident and single-car spin. We expect the green flag next time by. Bob Varsha, Tommy Kendall, Derek Daly, Calvin Fish, and Scott Pruitt with you. We will update Adrian Fernandez's injuries as soon as we can. While the cars make their way around, Patrick Carpentier is making a last-second stop for a change of tires. He may have flat-spotted them in his spin. He may have gotten too much buildup. Mario Dominguez has also pitted, and he will come out ahead of Carpentier. Calvin Fish.
Well, George Franchitti is down there, Dario's dad. You're always in the background, but always paying close attention. How's your boy going to do? I mean, he grew up in Scotland. Driving on cold tires shouldn't be a problem for him.
I'm sure it's going to be okay.
I think he's got enough to hold Paul off. Paul's very motivated being in Canada.
I think you'll hold him off.
All right, mate. Best of luck. Let's go down to Scott.
The story from Paul's pit: win the race, but don't take your teammate out.
Ah, yes, the best laid plans.
In that order.
Right. Now, let me be clear. Mario Dominguez is 10 laps down to the race leader, but he did come out ahead of Carpentier on the race track.
The biggest issue here is the buildup that you saw on those tires. That can take laps and laps and laps to get off. You can see Paul doing burnouts.
Through the shortcut, no one should follow her. She's going to go through the shortcut in turn 10 from 10 to 11. No one shall follow her.
That's Irene Chambers, the voice of race control. The safety car goes straight at turn 10. The cars will go around the island. That allows the safety car to get a gap on the field and pit safely.
And look at how slick it is. That shows you they are having a terrible time getting the power down.
Once again, looks like a good jump for Franchitti. Paul Tracy bogging down slightly. He's got Tony Kanaan right on his gearbox. Was there contact? Oh, Michel Jourdain Jr. and Tony Kanaan banged wheels. They go side by side down into one before Kanaan manages to hold on.
And the burnouts help clear the rear tires, but there's not much you can do for the front.
And that was for position. Kanaan taking third from Jourdain, who is still right there.
Jourdain reported he wasn't feeling very good. He was ahead of Tony at the line. Tony was able to come back by and look at the gap on cold tires that Franchitti has been able to build.
Michel Jourdain Jr. started dead last in the field. He has made 7 pit stops, and right now he is in 4th place. Scott Pruitt.
I just got done talking to Bobby Rahal, and I said, well, this is a good day to make chicken salad out of chicken. Well, you know what I mean. And he's going, Michel, this is it, buddy. This is a good shot. Looks like, hey, looks like they're having a good fight out there. He said, you keep it up, you keep it going, and you can get by this guy. Calvin?
Well, just an update on tire situation, Scott. I think Dario definitely has an advantage. Remember, on that last stint, they put new sticker tires on. Paul had to put some scrubs on. I just spoke to Carl Moore. He said they should definitely be better. They should give Dario the edge over these last few laps.
4 laps to go in the race as you ride with Patrick Carpentier. Ahead of him is Michel Jourdain Jr. Ahead of him, Tony Kanaan. And up the road, Paul Tracy. Finally, the race leader, Dario Franchitti. This was the scene of the accident. Team green cars have gapped the field, and in fact, Dario Franchitti has pulled out a big gap over Paul Tracy. Onto the start-finish straightaway. Across the line comes Franchitti. Paul Tracy, 1.6 seconds behind.
3 laps remaining. 3 laps.
That's right, 3 to go. Watch the steering input.
And you heard the engine rev, even with the traction control. With the cold tires, the tires break loose so quickly, the traction control sometimes can't even keep up.
There's Paul Tracy. Tony Kanaan right there behind him. Paul Tracy just doesn't appear to be as competitive as he was before that flag came out.
Still sliding around a bunch with that build up on the tires.
Onto the start-finish straightaway they come. 2 laps to go.
Hey, Pat, have a look at the board. 2 laps to go. 2 laps remain. Nice and smooth.
Was George Franchitti right? That quiet smile. He thought his boy Dario right there had something for Paul Tracy, Tony Kanaan, Michel Jourdain Jr., and Patrick Carpentier. Franchitti hasn't won since the 2001 season in Cleveland. Scott Pruitt.
Michel Jourdain is being told by his team, keep the pressure on Tony Kanaan. There's some question about if he has enough fuel to make it to the end. So it's keep the heat on, keep it going. See if we can push these guys hard enough. Right now, I just looked at the lap times. He's starting the fastest laps on the racetrack. Great job for starting last.
You had a look at his father, Michel Jourdain Sr., himself a driver in the Champ cars. There's the gap.
Hey, Pat,
1 lap to go, white flag.
Last lap right now.
This in from Dr. Steve Olvey, the Director of Medical Affairs for CART. Adrian Fernandez has a large bruise and a contusion on his right hip. He'll be transferred to Vancouver General Hospital for further evaluation, but he appears to be otherwise undamaged, and that's great news. We saw Ashley Judd looking on. Here comes Dario.
And look how close Dario clipped that inside wall in the kink. Saw George and Ashley, they're just twitching with tension.
Dario's been frustrated on a few occasions. He had a dominant car on the oval in Chicago earlier this year, but he had some off-form pit stops that cost him a lot of positions on the racetrack. He was very unhappy then, but I think his confidence in Team Green has not wavered. That elusive chemistry between a driver, his engineers, and his mechanics to get the most out of themselves in their car on race day. And on a day filled with dramatic twists and turns, this day will go to Dario Franchitti. His first victory in 2 seasons and his second here in Vancouver, the first coming back in 1998. 19th all-time win for Team Green. Hugs all around in the pits. We'll be right back to hear from our winner.
Welcome back to the celebrations. Barry Green is here. Dario Franchitti first jumped out to congratulate Paul Tracy. Dario, it has to feel good, more than a year for you to stand in victory circle.
Feels great. I mean, 1-2 for Team Cool Green. We did it here a couple of years ago, but the other way around. This one feels a bit better, I have to say. You know, Paul, I think the pit strategy hurt him. My guys did a great job all day, and I'm really happy.
Did you realize as it unfolded that your strategy may play into your hand and against Paul?
Yeah, that's Kyle said that. He said, we're looking good, 15 seconds, we're looking good, and then the yellow came out, and you know, I was saying, you know, Paul's going to be strong here on the restarts, but I made sure of it, and I got a decent gap.
Congratulations, Dario. Go enjoy the champagne. What a great day for Team Cool Green. First and second. They haven't done this for a couple of years, but boy, they can enjoy the champagne tonight. We'll be right back.
we'll give you a look at the final results of today's dramatic kart Grand Prix of Vancouver. As we do, we'll tell you Cristiano D'Amato remains the points leader, but winner Dario Franchitti is now just 38 behind, taking over second place from Bruno Junqueira. Final thoughts, Tommy Kendall?
Just a beautiful race all around for Dario Franchitti and Paul Tracy. Paul's strategy, again, everybody pitting, him staying out, worked against him, but a really, really strong move for them. Cristiano D'Amato, more trouble.
Here's a look at our coverage plans for Mid-Ohio. Be sure to join us beginning Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on August 9th with first round qualifying. Victory to Dario Franchitti in a Team Green 1-2. We've got to go. Speed News is next. I'm Bob Varsha for Tommy Kendall, Derek Daly, Calvin Fish, and Scott Pruitt. So long from Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada.